they're going to control everything if there aren't limits, guardrails on government.
I'm ordering you right now. We had Arthur Herman in for 2 hours about a week ago, the great conservative historian. He wrote a book called The Forge of Democracy, I think it's called, about Detroit in the automotive industry during World War II. So I'm going to send that to you and see what we did with industry in World War II to basically become the arsenal of democracy and to win said war and kick ass throughout the world. We basically had to.
You are so good. You know what? You're so
not
good.
Have free markets.
You can take a situation, an argument, a debate, and completely getting rope-a-dope, getting beaten senseless, and come out and just throw everything off and say, "Here's why I'm right and here's why I win." Are you President Bannon? Do I hear President Bannon 20? Well, whatever.
No,
I better not put a date on it. But Bannon with a date.
President, hold it. First off, I'm not a politician. Number two, President Trump just agreed with me. He's going to be at the White House for 9 more years. He said that the other day in the East Wing. I think they all melted down. Eric Bowling, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're going to talk about what happens overnight if they get more than 11 ships through the Strait.
Gloves above the belt. Gloves above the belt.
I didn't realize that all those years at Fox would have did. No, I'm just kidding. That is below the belt.
On the way out, always. That's one of those haymakers on the way out of the ring. See you tomorrow.
Eric Bowling, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you. The great Eric Bowling. We'll have Eric back on tomorrow. Okay, we're going to play a cold open. A lot went on this afternoon. We're going to play a cold open, and then I've got Dr. Peter Navarro from the White House. Alex DeGrasse and Caroline Renner are going to join us about redistricting. Let's go ahead and let it rip.
As President Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be opened, back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal here. Every day the conflict continues, however, our leverage on Iran will continue to increase, and their position will continue to weaken, especially as the blockade really begins to bite in conjunction with the sanctions. This is an international waterway. Okay, this is an international waterway. And international law is very clear, and I love it because everybody always talks about international law, and this international law on this is very clear. International waterways, no country can control them. There is no international law that allows you to say, I'm going to put mines in an international body of water and I'm going to blow up ships that don't listen to us and try to go through. That's what Iran is doing. This is a criminal act. And someone needs to do something about it. Something needs to be done. It's completely illegal, completely illegitimate, and completely unacceptable. And that's why the United States military is guiding stranded commercial ships safely through the strait and is working to restore freedom of navigation and putting an end to these efforts to hold the global economy hostage.
On the rising oil and gas prices, the president has said that this is a small price to pay for getting rid of a nuclear weapon. But 10 weeks in, are we any closer to getting rid of Iran's nuclear material?
Yeah, but look, here's the way to think about Iran, and this is what I described at the very beginning of this. What was Iran's plan? You have to understand what their plan was. Their plan was they were going to build this conventional shield where they would have so many thousands of missiles and drones and rockets that they couldn't be attacked. And behind that conventional shield that they were trying to build, they would then break out and do whatever they wanted with their nuclear program. They no longer have that conventional shield. Okay, we told you guys from the very beginning, and we're very consistent in this messaging. The operation that has concluded was going to destroy their Navy. They have no Navy left. They don't. Not a Navy. They have small boats and Boston whalers, but they don't have a Navy left. They don't have an Air Force. I challenge you. When is the last time you read or heard about an Iranian jet flying anywhere? They don't have an Air Force. Their missile launching capability has been substantially degraded, and their industrial base, their defense industrial base, has been severely, severely damaged. So their ability to build a shield behind which they could hide their nuclear program was wiped out. That's a very substantial achievement, and that was the purpose of this operation from day one.
Their nuclear material in order for this war to end.
Well, that's one of the topics that needs to be discussed. I don't know about. I think you're linking it. The operation is over. Epic Fury, as the president notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. Okay, we're now on to this project of freedom. As far as a negotiation is concerned, I think the president's been clear that part of the negotiation process has to be not just the enrichment, but what happens to this material that's buried deep somewhere that they still have access to to if they ever wanted to dig it out. That has to be addressed, and that's being addressed in the negotiation. I'm not going to go further on what progress has been made on that topic because I don't want to endanger the negotiations, but suffice it to say that the president and this entire team is aware of the centrality of that question, and that will have to be addressed one way or the other. The president, our president, has proven time and again that his preference is peace. But Iran must accept the reality of this situation and come to the negotiation table and accept terms that are good for them but ultimately good for the world. The diplomatic path, if there's a real diplomatic path, I'm not sure there's going to be one, but if there's a real diplomatic path and we continue to explore it, Steve and Jared are working on that very hard. If there is one there, it could be one that leads them to reconstruction, to prosperity, and to stability, and to not posing a threat to the world. The alternative is growing isolation, economic collapse, and ultimately total defeat. I know what the right choice is for Iran. I hope that the people over there making decisions will make the right one.
Operation Epic Fury is over. The president also said that the U.S. would bomb them off the face of the earth if they tried to go after U.S. ships. So if the fighting resumes, are you saying that it would resume under Project Freedom? And I ask, as it relates to the War Powers Act.
Yeah, look, the Operation Epic Fury is concluded. We achieved the objectives of that operation. I'm not going to, we're not cheering for an additional situation to occur. We would prefer the path of peace. What the president would prefer is a deal. He would prefer to sit down, work out a memorandum of understanding for future negotiations that touches on all the key topics that have to be addressed, a full opening of the strait so the world can get back to normal. He preferred that be negotiated through the route that Steve and Jared have been working and that all of us have been supporting. That's the route he prefers. That is so far not the route that Iran has chosen. And so the result has been that the United States has to do something about the fact that we're the only nation on earth that can do anything to open up a lane within the Straits of Hormuz to get product and to rescue these people that are trapped in there. And that's what we're undergoing now. What that may lead to in the future is speculative. I'm not going to speculate about what it would take or what it would do. But look, the message to Iran, these guys are facing, they are facing real catastrophic destruction to their economy, generational destruction to their economy, generational destruction to the wealth of their country, imposed on themselves by the actions that they're taking. They should check themselves before they wreck themselves in the direction that they're going.
Does the White House believe that these votes coming up in Congress are a moot point then?
Look, guys, I love talking about this topic. It's about the War Powers Act.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. I was hoping somebody would ask. All right, hold on. No, boy, you don't let me answer. I got to answer the question. Okay, and I love it. I'll tell you why I love it. Because even as a senator, I said something. The War Powers Act is unconstitutional, 100%. Now, this is not the position of me, not the position of the President of the United States now. This is the position of every single president that has occupied this position since the day that law passed. It's completely unconstitutional. Now, we comply with it in terms of, notification because we want to preserve good relations with Congress, right? And we do that. But even as a senator, I would say that the War Powers Act is 100% unconstitutional. And look, I know some of you, whatever you want to say, but this is not this president's position. That has been the position of every single presidential administration since the day that law passes. An infringement on the president's constitutional powers. We don't acknowledge the law as constitutional. Nonetheless, we comply with elements of it for purposes of maintaining, good relations with Congress, and we want them to be involved and we want them to be informed. I have gone on Capitol Hill, 4 times this year for all senators and all House members and Intel Committee and Gang of 8. We want them to be involved in this, but I want to be clear on the point of the War Powers Act. It's unconstitutional, and every president and every administration has taken that position. All right, guys, I gave you 50 minutes. Thank you, guys. The last point I would make, and it really is important for them to understand this, is they really shouldn't test the will of the United States, at least not under President Donald Trump. He has proven time and again that he will back up what he says. And if they test him, ultimately they will lose. The hard way, the easy way, the long way, the short way, they will lose.
Both General Blanche and Secretary Rollins have alluded to this 85% control. I'll give you the nerd view as an economist who was in antitrust for a while. There's this thing that the 4 firms is a magic number. It's the 4-firm concentration ratio that's been enshrined in Justice Department doctrine for decades. And it basically says when you approach even something like 60%, you invite collusion, either explicit or tacit. And that's not only the problem we have here, it's that half of the 4 are Brazilian. Half of the 4 are Brazilian. And in my tariff world, I remember vividly just recently when the president put tariffs on Brazil because of actions they were taking which were harmful to the American people, what happened? The beef lobby, represented by the Brazilians, quietly threatened the White House. And we saw beef that should otherwise be on the counters sold in American grocery stores going where? China. So it's not just price gouging and price fixing we have to worry about. It's also the influence of foreigners on our supply chain and the national security issues that are associated with that. We cannot tolerate that.
Okay, the press conference today ended wildly, but I think Marco did a solid job of walking through a number of things. Number one, I don't think it quite hit upon me that Epic Fury was over, right? I think they said, I thought the letter was saying that it was temporarily suspended and because it didn't have to count. And now I realize what they were talking about this morning is the naval operation is not just a separate operation, that is the operation. So I don't know what the Israelis think about the fact that the main target of Iran appears, of course, in Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Rubio said it twice. We'll get back to that. Neil McCabe's at the White House. He was there today. We'll get to Neil in a moment. We're pretty packed this afternoon for the next 2 hours. Dr. Peter Navarro joins us. Here's what I can't understand about this, what you guys are doing on this beef situation. Because I'm hearing from people in the United States that actually have beef that are cattle, and they hate the fact that we're bringing Brazilian. Is the concept here that you're trying to break this cartel so we can bring more Brazilian beef into the United States, sir?
No. The Brazilian angle, Steve, is simply that the Brazilians own U.S. processing capacity, full stop. 4 firms, Tyson Cargill, JBS, which is one of the worst Brazilian actors, and a company called National Beef, which is actually Brazilian as well. So JBS, National Beef, have come in and bought up our processing capability here in the U.S. on U.S. soil. And what they do is according to information, they collude with the others on price. But then when it comes to things like I mentioned in the cold open, pressuring the United States government on behalf of the Brazilian government, they do things like ship beef here that would otherwise to China that would otherwise be here. So this is not, don't conflate these two issues. We're talking about Brazilian companies that have taken over U.S. processing on U.S. soil, and they're going to be investigated, and divestiture, Steve, is on the table.
Hang on. How did that pass? Was it CFIUS or whatever the national security checks and balances are? How did these two get, and what percentage? You've got 4, but Cargill and Tyson's are huge. What percentage of the market did the JBS and National Beef, the true Brazilian entities, what percentage of the marketplace do they control?
Close to half. And Steve, memo to the Admiral, okay? China bought Smithfield Foods and basically owns our pork supply chain here on U.S. soil, okay? CFIUS is like, I used to joke, it's like a Greek name for an STD. I mean, it's like it does nothing, okay? On our watch, we're much more vigilant, but it's run out of Treasury, and historically Treasury, he's been like a hooker at a brothel, like all comers. So that's been the problem. We've given away so much of our economic capacity that it's become a national security issue. And that's where the Trump administration is different. That's where this Department of Justice has an antitrust department, which actually has both some teeth in it and some cojones. And what we did yesterday at that press conference, I mean, Todd Blanche was magnificent, as was Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture. And we're moving forward. I tell you, Steve, tomorrow there was supposed to be a trial in Minnesota, okay? And I'm going to channel you back to your Harvard Business School days, okay? And imagine sitting
Can you hang on for 1 second? We just want to hold you through a break. Dr. Peter Navarro joins us from the White House. Neil McCabe is at the White House. He's also going to join us. We've got Alex DeGrasse on the redistricting wars. That's the number one news, or at least the number one political news story in the world right now. And Steve Cortez is also going to join us. Wade Miller at CRA. So we are jam-packed this afternoon. Short commercial break. Back with Dr. Peter Navarro in a moment.
All the plants your yard needs, without the hassle. That's what fast-growing.
This Friday, Rav family, it's time to turn it up. Real America's music artists, the Truth Bombers, are back, and this time, it's bigger than ever. The two-time Billboard charting band is releasing their first full-length album, and it's ready to shake the charts. From the group that brought you God, Grit, and Guns, Cancel This, and Truth Bomb, comes a powerful new project packed with 7 unforgettable tracks. This isn't just music, it's a movement. Download it now. Scan the QR code or search Truth Bomb by the Truth Bombers on iTunes. Let's run this up the charts, Rav family, and send a message loud and clear. Patriots control the culture, not the woke left. Go get the album now. Don't miss it. God, great and guns.
When it's breaking,
we're moving.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
News doesn't sleep. At Real America's Voice, we don't get to crash or lose focus. That's why we drink Soldier Fuel to stay ahead of the chaos, because we do this for you.
So good.
Soldier Fuel has no sugar, so no crash.
Now that's a game changer.
I'm fueled up now. Woo!
Used by the U.S. military every day. Now available to you.
This is huge.
Built by Patriots for Patriots.
Now it's time for you to do the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Order Soldier Fuel, film yourself cracking one open, and taking the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Upload your video at soldierfuel.com/challenge, and you'll be entered to win a free shipment of Soldier Fuel.
That's what I'm talking about.
Your video could also be featured on air. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to soldierfuel.com/challenge to enter. Drink with the Rav hosts drink. Soldier Fuel.
Let's go.
My name is Sandy Zeiss. Rav is the greatest for me because I live alone, and when I'm watching in the morning, have my coffee, I feel like I'm talking with family.
Hey guys, my name is Jeff. I'm from Massachusetts. I love Rav because of the free speech and the political wranglings that go on in the chat every day.
I'm Andy M., and I love Real America's Voice, where my voice counts and your voice counts. That is America's Voice.
The rent is too damn high, and the food prices are too damn high, and the beef is particularly too damn high. Peter Navarro, our trade czar, helping President Trump with the tariffs and Liberation Day and all the good that's come out of that, is with us. So talk to me. What are you going to do? Are you going to break up JBS and National? Are you going to force the Brazilians to sell them? Because JBS, that scumbag, is the leading financier of the Marxist Lula, sir.
And it's also one of the big banks for the K Street lobbyists who come around and lobby for things like let JBS buy up all our processing, and they get they get a tremendous rate of return. I want to tell you about this case. Tomorrow was supposed to be the trial of a company called AgriStats. It's straight out of the Harvard Business School class that you probably skipped. And what they do is they use their sophisticated mathematical models to receive data from individual actors in the processing matrix. Think about that, individual actors. And then they process the data themselves and spit back, allegedly, the monopoly prices that should be charged in the market. You cannot make that up.
Wow.
Now, the toughness of Todd Blanche's antitrust department has persuaded them to settle. So there should be a settlement announced tomorrow, and if not, we're going to trial. But that settlement will not only solve that problem, it should also reveal some of the bad practices of the various actors in the four-firm cartel. So it's a classic, like, get somebody to turn, right? You get them to turn state's witnesses. So this is a big deal. It's the kind of thing we're doing. And Steve, look, in the Trump White House, we are acting as aggressively as we can across all points of that inflation compass. The food issue is hard. The beef issue is the hardest because it's a global problem in terms of supply and demand because of things like drought and this, that, and the other thing. But the things we can control, we will control. And we will control and can control price fixing in that market. So what we need to do is break up the Brazilians, the vestitures on the table, and basically decentralize some of this processing. Brooke Rollins is working on that, so you develop like local processing capability at the micro level and disperse some of that power. And it's the kind of thing we're doing. We're doing chicken and pork and all. We've got whole seafood initiatives, this, that, and the other thing, and then dealing with the housing inflation. The data has been moving well in our favor. And I had another column in Real Clear Markets today about the trade data that just came out that shows how we are, under Trump policies, rapidly reindustrializing. The tariffs are working, the tax breaks for building factories in America are working, the deregulation's working, and Trump's working. So, we got a lot on our plate, but that's what we do.
CRA, where Russ Vought founded, the team over there that he left behind is absolutely extraordinary. So Wade Miller is going to be on.
He is doing a fantastic job, Steve, just so you know. Go ahead.
He's at OMB, just amazing, and the team he brought. But the guys he left behind have been working on something I will get to. Wade is going to be on at 6:30 this evening on War Room to walk through analysis they've done in an action plan. It turns out, and their analysis, and I'll get this to you, Dr. Navarro, it costs, for a family of four in the United States, it costs about $105,000 to participate in society, for healthcare and mortgage and energy and, transportation, et cetera. This is without any frills. This is kind of basics, right? They have a program of 63 action items in those five big categories, rent and mortgages, healthcare, that takes that down to $41,000. It basically and they call on the left to really talk about affordability because everything the left wants to talk about is another government program. Anyway, I will share that with you, but the audience, the people should know that we're very focused on this.
I love to see lists like that because, I've seen lists come and go from my office, and within 48 hours, when we can, we get them done. So we move in Trump time, Steve.
You move in Trump time. Dr. Peter Navarro, where do people go for your content? So you're putting up these videos every day. You're writing these columns for Washington Times, Washington Examiner, and, of course, putting it up on Real Clear Politics. Where do folks go to get it all?
PeterNavarro.com. That'll take you to the X, Truth Social, and Getter social media, as well as Instagram. We do the 60-second videos regular column now in Real Clear Markets whenever big data reports come out. There's the Substack, but you can find all of this.
Yeah.
And look, what we do is we take issues, as the War Room does, down to the simplest possible level without losing the complexity.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. John Tamney, the editor of Real Clear Markets. Fantastic. He's putting you up. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you and your hard work. Dr. Peter Navarro over at the White House. Let's go. I have Neil McCabe. Neil, I was struck. Rubio, I thought, did a very solid job. I handled a lot of questions. Caroline's out on maternity. The one thing that jumped off at me was that he said a number of times that Epic Fury is over. I thought it was really a notification that had been the ceasefire gave you more weeks or more time. What is happening here? It's a pretty bold announcement, sir.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the morning we had Hegseth and Kane sort of giving the operational and tactical update of how the military operations are going. And Rubio came in today and at the White House and really dominated the reporters in that briefing room like we haven't seen in a long time from a cabinet officer. I mean, he laid out sort of the geopolitical understanding of the Trump administration and just sort of setting down the markers. Epic Fury is over. We are now in Project Freedom. And he reframed Project Freedom from really what it was described sort of this morning with Hegseth and Kane as a military operation. He described it as defensive, but also humanitarian because of the thousands, 23,000 merchant marine who are sort of trapped in the Persian Gulf behind that Iranian blockade and the hundreds of ships. He talked about the 10 merchant marines who have been killed so far by the Iranians. He talked about how these ships are running out of potable water. They're running out of food. And he really created a new construct for the operations in what was Operation Epic Fury, Steve.
Did he give any timeline? You know, today we talked bowling. There were 11 ships, I think, went out the past 24 hours. There was 4 before that. Did he give any indication of the tempo? We sending in more resources? Is it going to be 11 a day? Are we going to double that? Because even if you double it, you still have, I think, 1,500 ships, vessels locked up there. It's going to take you a while, sir.
No, he didn't go into that. And they're going to be taking that, what's called the southern route, which is along the coast of Oman. And that's the one that's controlled by the United States. It's on the opposite side of those Iranian islands where you have all the mosquito boats and the drone bases. But obviously that's going to speed up. And once you see some momentum, you know, and he also reached out to, our allies as if they're going to show up. But once you see some momentum, then it'll sort of take on a life of its own and people will see a light at the end of the tunnel. But right now, you have basically, hundreds of ships trapped in a bottle, Steve.
Did he, I didn't see the entire thing. Did anybody get a question to him about his upcoming trip this week to, I think he's leaving tomorrow. I think the Pope's on Thursday and Meloni is on Friday, the head of the Italian government.
No questions about, he mentioned he was going to Italy. No questions on Italy. He did speak about his visit to the Holy Father, but he really sort of downplayed it as not really crisis management. And he basically said that both he and the president don't understand why the Holy Father or anyone else would be comfortable with the Iranians having nuclear weapons that could strike Catholics. And so the question was, they asked the secretary, hey, what about Trump saying that the Pope wanted or the Pope was encouraging attacks on Catholics? You know how they sort of twist it up. But Rubio's very good at untangling, restating, and that's what he's basically doing for an hour in the briefing room, Steve.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There's still this thing of the pixie dust and the nuclear dust. Epic Fury's over, but if you believe President Trump and Rubio, of course, Rubio told us that we launched the attack because of the imminent attack on Israel. But the objective was to make sure they could never have a nuclear weapon, nuclear program. That hasn't totally been finalized. Why is Epic Fury done then? Did anybody ask him that?
No, nobody asked him, but what you're really saying now, Steve, is what was sort of one large, big, beautiful effort against Iran is now being broken up into compartments. And so you're going to have the Project Freedom compartment, you have a Fury, Operation Epic Fury. The uranium is going to be another project, and they're just going to give it a name and call it something else. But he was absolutely forthright that they are not going to allow the Iranians to have that uranium weapon program. Steve.
Real quickly, what's your social media? How do people get to you, Neil?
You can find me on all the socials at Reporter McCabe, Steve.
Neil McCabe, thank you for covering today the White House press conference. Appreciate you, sir. Short commercial break. Biggest story in the world in politics. One that the War Room posse is at the tip of the spear is the redistricting wars. Alex DeGrasse joins us on the other side.
Everybody hates Beth. She eats all the food she loves and stays slim. Kim starves herself down.
I'm at Utah Valley University. There was a gunshot.
The speaker, he's a debater, famous debater.
People were crying, people were screaming. It was a nightmare.
The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead.
Take a look at what happened.
Gunshot at the Trump rally.
The police are on the way.
Well, you better get over here quick. And there's a guy shooting.
Okay.
He's been shooting up the place.
They just tried to kill President Trump.
Multiple shots were fired at Trump National Golf Course.
The armed suspect camped outside the golf course for nearly 12 hours.
Shots were fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
This is the third attempt on President Trump's life in just 2 years.
Everyone ducked, got on the floor. People were underneath tables. No one knew what was going on, and the president was rushed off stage. The vice president was rushed off stage.
Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a Real Voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
Real America's Voice gives sponsors the chance to put their product front and center, displayed on screen and highlighted by our anchors during exclusive segments and live events.
Head to freetrumpknife.com.
This means your brand becomes part of the conversation as it happens.
Secure your spot before it's too late.
Join us today and make your brand part of the news conversation that America's viewers trust. Real America's Voice, where your message is seen, heard, and remembered.
Mama Love in northern Minnesota. You know, a collective voice is much louder than a single voice. Thanks, Rav, for giving us a place to chat and connect. See y'all in chat.
Hello, this is Kurt. Why do I love Rav? You ever talk to the host? You can do that on Rav. And the Rav family, they'll talk back to you too. Let you know what's going on. Take care.
Hi, this is Chris from Colorful Colorado. I'm drawbridge in the Getter Chat. I trust no one for my news except Real America's Voice. So if anyone asks, I was never here.
Land of Lincoln, we're fighting back, upholding our values, and safeguarding democracy.
Also today, House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries says he is sending New York Congressman Joseph Morell to Albany to discuss redrawing that state's congressional map, saying, quote, Democrats refuse to unilaterally disarm.
No, they shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't. Look, I just think...
This just very frustrates me.
See, that's how you start the engine, folks.
They should not unilaterally disarm, but to be very clear, this is about power. This is all about power. And at the end of the day, Republicans are able to do what they are doing because they control a number of state legislatures. They control a number of governorships.
Most of them.
And most of them, exactly. And in America, America's policy is made in the state legislatures. This is exactly, I'm going to keep saying it, what happened after Reconstruction. The 14th and 15th Amendments were never repealed. They just stopped being enforced. And the courts aided and abetted in that. The state legislatures aided and abetted in that. The governors, the business community aided and abetted in that. And it took almost 88 years to get back to a place, and it took the Voting Rights Act. Now we're in the same place. Section 2 is sure, it's intact on paper, but the states have moved with record speed to undo the progress that was made in those 87, 88 years in between Reconstruction and the Voting Rights Act. This is about power. It's about black political power. It's about the people of color in this country having a say, and they are attacking it directly.
How this might affect the midterms, November?
Well, it'll have a modest impact on the midterms because Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee could do away with a black majority seat each. And 3 seats is a big deal when Republicans are sitting on such a thin majority. It's unlikely to save the majority from falling into Democrats' hands, given that there are at least 15 Republican seats that are in deep, deep trouble. But this has wider ranging implications. This has changed the way that gerrymandering is practiced. It's gone from kind of a clever, time-honored, smoke-filled bipartisan tradition to an out in the open, out of control conflagration of disenfranchisement where Republican states are eradicating Democrats and black Democrats in these previously VRA protected seats. And we could see Democrats retaliate with even more Rorschach test gerrymanders in the North.
Also about how the country sees itself. And it has always seen itself primarily as a white nation. And so consequently, all efforts in the course of history has been to disabuse itself citizens disabusing it of that notion, because we are pluralistic. We are a place that welcomes everybody. So you can't be all one thing if you're welcoming the world to your backyard. You can't be all one thing if at some point there are more black people in a state than there are white people in the state, right? In the South at the time. And that's why they didn't want to count slaves as persons, because it shifted, to your point, the balance of power. So what this is also about in the power grab, it's about the rise of the South. Again, they promised it was going to happen, and it is. And you've got a complicit, compliant Republican Party that is aiding and abetting in the rise of an old South that the country worked through a long civil war to move us off of.
And as if on cue, Ron DeSantis wants to remind you that Florida is in fact part of the American South. This is what they did today. DeSantis revealed a new map. Legislative committee hearings were held on Tuesday. The state House and Senate approved the map Wednesday. There was virtually no opportunity for public participation.
Of course.
You see the smears right there on the South and the patriotic South? It makes you want more than ever to smash all this and take every frickin' seat. It's totally and completely unconstitutional, and the South has been suppressed. Southerners have been suppressed. Their votes have been suppressed. Their voices have been suppressed for decade after decade after decade after decade. And because President Trump won, when people run around smack talking, just remember, hey, there are greater themes going on here. We control the Supreme Court because of the Trump victory in 16 and then coming back in 20 or in 24. So this is the fruits of Trump's victory, and it's a massive victory, 6-3. Alex DeGrasse, this is not only the number one political story in the country, probably the world, but I have never seen the Democrats, having watched these guys up close and personal now for 10, 12, 15 years. They are in full meltdown about this, are they not, sir?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the biggest meltdown other than, I guess Trump's victories, of course. But, we've been talking about it for 4 years, Steve. So they should watch the show, of course. So at least they can mentally prepare themselves. But, actually, it's funny that they're mentioning the Constitution and the founders, because obviously, what we had in place was totally unconstitutional, and it was a 6-3 ruling. And also our founders and framers of the Constitution were really clear that they don't want a majority of the masses. They don't, you shouldn't be able to consolidate power in the cities or something like that. And so that's why, it's their problem that the Democrats have reduced themselves to a party that is really only competitive in, dense suburbs and in the cities. I mean, that's their problem. And if they happen to win,
where it's illegal, they only competitive where there's illegal alien invaders and or universities that have tons of foreign students. It's the coastal areas in the big cities where all these illegal aliens like New York City and LA, who in the hell knows who votes there? And then you've got the university towns. You look at the little patches of blue in Austin or in these university towns because they've got tons of foreign students and Marxist professors that have warped these kids. I want to go back to when they're all... This modern version of it started with Hochul back in 2022 when you said, hey, these guys in New York are just grabbing seats randomly because they control things. We got to get focused, and we have the opportunity to pick up 8 or 10 seats. You went to war. The war room was your platform. 11 seats changed hands. The Democrats took 3, and we took 8. And those 8 were the difference between us taking the House and not taking the House. This gave us control of the House of Representatives and took it away from Nancy Pelosi. We learned a lesson. Redistricting wars are the predicate before you get into particularly midterms. You've got to win the redistricting wars, sir.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it was a huge lesson. And then I think, that was going to 22, and then you saw 23. They tried to mid-decade, that's their term, mid-decade redistrict in New York. We ended up suing about it. They did end up changing the map. They actually weakened Brendan Williams' seat by about 6 or 7 points in a compromise, which is a bad compromise, but I guess was better than what they were offering at the time in New York. So these guys are all crooks. This whole thing is manufactured and phony. Once we get to the heart of it, Steve, and we go after what you mentioned, which is the millions of illegal immigrants that are founding the basis of the census, and then, of course, the equation that's used to figure out the House seats, we're talking about another 25, 35 seats, probably minimum, to be honest with you. That's included with the demographic shifts legally across states, right? People moving to red states from blue states. I mean, the next 4 years, it's going to be continued legal warfare while we try to juice this thing through. Not only is the next presidential really important in the context of the census, but of course, President Trump has ordered a census. I'm unsure where that is, but that's super important that we rectify not only the last one, but certainly that we work to put in place for the next one, and obviously that we hold the presidency, since that will be who oversees it.
What's the latest update? I know there's a firestorm down in South Carolina. There are other things happening. Where do we need the war room posse? President Trump is now fully engaged in this. We've also got the vote in Indiana, which is a sore topic for us because we thought we had this thing pretty well handled before La Savita and these guys came in and tried to be, tried to play the heavies. And of course, now we're gonna have 0 pickups there because of that. But what's going on in the rest, particularly South Carolina?
So it sounds like South Carolina, President Trump spoke directly, I believe, with the state senators. They've got the votes in the state house, but the state Senate's unclear. So I think that seems to be the major focal point. And I think for the posse to be locked in on the South Carolina Republican State Senate. And I think, hey, this is a great exercise, Steve, because you really kind of learn like who's with us, who's not. And some of these, red states, you've got these state representatives. You look at Indiana, I mean, these guys are a disaster. I mean, I really can't believe it. As a New York, originally New York Republican, moved to Florida. I mean, at least when you're a Republican, either they're honest about it or they're not, or they're maybe a moderate or they're not, and you kind of know what you get. But with some of these guys in the South, you really got to do a full look at really who these people are at your local state level, because it's key. And so there's no excuse in South Carolina. I mean, this is critical. I mean, I think we're on track, Steve, for that 10 pickup, which was the goal, by the way, that I set out and we talked about, right? 10 is solid. I think if we hold Virginia, we could be looking at 14. That's kind of based off what's been sort of in motion. That does include South Carolina, does include only one in Louisiana. And so that's where we're at. So, I mean, I feel great about it.
Hang on. The South Carolina situation is emblematic of the problems we have, like in Georgia. That, I think President Trump was on the horn with a group call with a couple of senators, but I think it's the Senate leader down there that's the obstruction. He's already talked to McMaster's, and these guys go out of their way to come up with every excuse. That's Clyburn's. What we're talking about in South Carolina is Clyburn's seat, is it not?
Yeah. That's right.
Why would we not want to take?
That's how Biden got in there.
Caroline's is Benny Thompson. Now, Benny Thompson should be the top of my list because he's one of the guys that sent me to prison. He's not. I mean, I'd love, just in logic, it ought to go. But Clyburn's seat is totally unconstitutional. And he sits on that perch like some grand political strategist. He made Biden essentially the Democratic nominee, correct? This ought to be something that conservatives and Republicans in South Carolina ought to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do this and to fulfill the promise of the Constitution, shouldn't it? And they come up with a million and one excuses. It's always a million different things. We didn't say all this was easy. If it was easy, you wouldn't have the position you're in. These people are supposed to be able to do hard things. That's when there's positions of leadership. And the president of the United States, running a war, trying to solve all the issues with the economy, trying to turn the country around, trying to fight the people that are trying to assassinate him, it seems like every other day. He shouldn't have to be whipping votes and calling state senators in South Carolina. This is when, once again, we've put the entire burden on President Trump. This upsets me no end. And this is Clyburn's seat. Clyburn, first off, it's about the Constitution. But number two, let's face it, Clyburn should be our number one political target. This is payback for everything he did to force the illegitimate Biden regime down the throats of the American people in those 4 years. It's called payback.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm learning, Steve, is a lot of these Republicans in general, I mean, they've got all these deals, of course. They've got deals with lobbyists that have deals with Democrats, that have deals with, they want both sides. I mean, we see it in New York. You've got areas where it's Republican, but maybe they've got one Democrat because they want to get the gravy train. They want access to both parties. So it's really actually disgusting. And it has to stop. And it is all about the Constitution. It's totally clear cut. Supreme Court ruled. All these guys in the South, they said, hey, well, we're waiting for the Supreme Court. We said, oh, of course it's coming. We're going to win this thing because the basis is clear. And so now it's not only, these are unconstitutional. I love President Trump's truth. Why would you want to have an election, or how can you have an election where, according to the Supreme Court, there's unconstitutional seats that are drawn by race? So it's crazy to me, but I think we're going to get this thing done, Steve. I think this will play a major role in saving the country. Things are hanging in the balance on the midterms, of course, just historically, and everything is going to count.
Hang on 1 second. Just hang on. I'm going to hold you through break. Steve Cortez is also going to join us, Mike Lindell, and Brother Miller from CRA, this major, not just report, but whole line of attack that they've got on affordability, on the cost of what it takes a family to live in this country the right way. Short break.
Losing your hair? Tired of hiding and looking older than you really are? With Bosley, you can get your real...
I'm at Utah Valley University. There was a gunshot.
The speaker, he's a debater, famous debater.
People were crying, people were screaming. It was a nightmare.
The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead.
Take a look at what happened.
shot at the Trump rally.
The police are on the way
So
there.
you better get over here quick. And there's a guy shooting.
Okay,
He's been shooting up the place.
They just tried to kill President Trump.
Multiple shots were fired at Trump National Golf Course.
The armed suspect camped outside the golf course for nearly 12 hours.
Shots were fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
This is the third attempt on President Trump's life in just 2 years.
Everyone ducked, got on the floor. People were underneath tables. No one knew what was going on, and President was rushed off stage. The vice president was rushed off stage.
Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a Real Voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
Real America's Voice gives sponsors the chance to put their product front and center, displayed on screen and highlighted by our anchors during exclusive segments and live events.
Head to freetrumpknife.com.
This means your brand becomes part of the conversation as it happens.
Secure your spot before it's too late.
Join us today and make your brand part of the news conversation that America's viewers trust. Real America's Voice, where your message is seen, heard, and remembered.
Mama Rub in northern Minnesota. You know, a collective voice is much louder than a single voice. Thanks, Rev, for giving us a place to chat and connect. See y'all in chat.
Hello, this is Kurt. Why do I love Rav? You ever talk to the host? You can do that on Rav. And the Rav family, they'll talk back to you too. Let you know what's going on. Take care.
Hi, this is Chris from Colorful Colorado. I'm drawbridge in the Getter Chat. I trust no one for my news except Real America's Voice. So if anyone asks, I was never here.
We're going to get Philip Patrick on hopefully tomorrow, the next day. The first quarter numbers are out. Central banks buying gold at record rates again. Of course, some of them have to sell gold to meet the obligations they have. Let's say that. Anyway, we'll break all that down. Go to birchgold.com, promo code Bannon. Get to Philip Patrick and the team. That's who you want to talk to about all the different methodologies. You can invest in physical gold today, IRAs, 401ks, all of it. But you want to talk to the experts. Gold's been on a tear. Find out why it has been a hedge against times of financial turbulence, particularly when you have the U.S. dollar as the backbone of the world's financial system. And you've seen the new budget with the deficits they got, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the BRICS nations, President Trump's going over to talk to the Chinese Communist Party in less than 2 weeks. So that's all part of it. You want to understand that and do your pattern recognition of not the price of gold, but what drives the value of gold. Talk to Philip Patrick and the team. Do it today. You talk about local deals. Remember, we started this in 22. The Florida guys in Tallahassee said, no, we've already made our deals for this session. All the deals are in place. If you start doing it at a federal level, it's going to change everything and new deals are going to have to be cut. Locally, we're not going to do that. But you told me that. I go, are you kidding me? Is that actually what they say? And we had to go in there and get a couple of 3 seats, I think 4 seats back then, and then do it again. But you're right. These local guys, they just want to hunker down and do what's right for them on the local level and not worry about the Constitution or the country itself. And you're seeing this in South Carolina. Alex, your Twitter feed, along with Caroline Renz and Sean Spicer, has kind of been bomber command. People want to go to that. I know there's big news tonight about Indiana. It'll be later. Where do people go to keep up with you?
Yeah, first off, make sure you get out the vote in Indiana. That's obviously huge. Also, early voting is ongoing in Louisiana. So you've got Julia Letlow there. That's huge. That's Trump's endorsement. Knock out Cassidy. But I'm at the Grass 81 on X. Caroline and Sean got updates. We're going to keep things working. South Carolina is the main focal point now. We'll continue to have updates. But thanks, Steve, and thank you to the posse.
No, when the president's taking that kind of time, it's pretty extraordinary. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's really something. Thanks, Steve.
He's talking to groups of, state senators, which is fine. But, I mean, the guy's got a couple, 3 things to do. Steve Cortez, and Steve, I'm going to ask you to stay through the top of the 6 o'clock hour. Let me just get your thoughts on the redistricting wars and how this is so, so important for us right now. And President Trump basically having to whip his own votes here is once again where people are just, let Trump take care of it. Let Trump take care of it. That's the guys fighting a war, fighting all the geopolitical situation. We're going to talk in a moment about the Pope. He's got Rubio going to talk to the Pope. He's doing everything in the world. He doesn't have time to talk to state senators in South Carolina. That shouldn't be part of his job description to take an unconstitutional district and flip it to a constitutional district, sir.
Yeah, you're exactly correct, by the way. The point is, these districts are not valid anyway. They're not valid for 2 reasons. Number one, the last census was not done correctly. And that's not my opinion. That's the Census Bureau itself admitting that it wasn't done correctly. And then on top of that, because of a perversion of the Voting Rights Act over decades, we know that we have Americans unconstitutionally and unjustly balkanized into effectively racial silos, which is totally unconstitutional, which doesn't match up in any way with American principles. So it's a imperative that we absolutely now redraw these districts. But you're right. We don't have that sense of urgency in far too many state capitals around the country. And it seems like sometimes, Steve, the reddest states are actually the laziest when it comes to these kinds of tasks, which is really infuriating.
No, that's the thing is that you're now down in Tennessee. You see, President's got to call Bill Lee and say, hey, and that's Cohen. These guys, you got Benny Thompson, you have Clyburn, you have Cohen. I mean, these ought to be top targets regardless. The fact that they're in unconstitutional districts just adds to it. But give people a minute on the way things roll in Chicago, because now they're saying, hey, we're going to take all the Republican districts in Illinois. The Democrats play a different game, don't they?
They certainly do, and they mean business. And by the way, we can learn from them as far as tactics. We don't want to learn from them on principles at all, right, because they have none. But regarding tactics, there are things we can learn from them. It kind of reminds me, for example, of Nancy Pelosi. I have to tell you, as horrible as she was for America, there were times when I would say, man, if we had a Nancy Pelosi on our side, if we had that kind of a Speaker of the House who's a gangster, who used, even though she's not from Chicago, she used a lot of Chicago tactics. So you're right. Now in Illinois, they're talking about, and the map of Illinois is already laughable. It is so ludicrously gerrymandered, but they might go even further. They want to one-up Virginia right now. And what Virginia did with Northern Virginia, where Northern Virginia now dominates the entirety of the state, the entirety of Old Dominion, Chicago is probably going to end up doing to the rest of Illinois. So when they bring a gun to the fight, we can't show up with just our fists, right? We've got to at least show up with a knife, preferably with a gun, when they show up at the gunfight with a gun.
Are they proposing? Somebody told me they're trying to work a map that would take all Republican representation in Illinois and get rid of it. I mean, Pritzker wants to top what Newsom did in California, correct?
Yeah, no, that's exactly correct. And the only way to do it, by the way, because the state is so red once you get out of the Chicago area, is you're going to literally have to draw a bunch of, sort of snake districts that have enough of Chicago and the Chicago area, the Chicago suburbs, to get the district blue. And then you're going to have to go down and disenfranchise people downstate. I mean, there will be it's already a laughable map. It will become truly absurd if Chicago, in fact, does it. But yes, they absolutely are talking about it. I'll actually be in Chicago the next couple of days. I hope I can learn more about it. But my point here is, when the Democrats have power, Steve, they are gangsters, okay? They leverage power when they have it. And we don't want to mimic their lack of principles and their soullessness, but we can learn from their tactics. And when we earn power, when we have earned it from the people, it's time to employ it correctly and ruthlessly.
Amen. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Hour 2 is going to start momentarily. Steve Cortez is going to stick with me. We got a lot to go over. And Wade Miller is going to join me. I want to really get into this whole thing about affordability and CRA, Russ Vogt's shop that he set up, Wade Miller and the team running it now, have come up with a brilliant, not just analysis of what ails us, but an action plan to really help the American family. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to leave you with the right stuff. We'll be back in just a moment.
This is Fubo. It's your way to watch ESPN and other top sports networks.
I'm at Utah Valley University. There was a gunshot.
The speaker, he's a debater, famous debater.
People were crying, people were screaming. It was a nightmare.
The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead.
Take a look at what happened.
Gunshot at the Trump rally.
The police are on the way
So you better get over here quick. And there's a guy shooting.
Okay.
He's been shooting up the place.
They just tried to kill President Trump.
Multiple shots were fired at Trump National Golf Course.
The armed suspect camped outside the golf course for nearly 12 hours.
Shots were fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
This is the third attempt on President Trump's life in just 2 years.
Everyone ducked, got on the floor. People were underneath tables. No one knew what was going on. And the president was rushed off stage. The vice president was rushed off stage.
Weakness gets exposed. That's why the best take Go Pills. Born for military performance, built for high-pressure days when your brain has to move faster than the chaos. This is neurotransmitter support, helping your mind fire clean signals so you can process data fast, decide fast, and stay locked in when it matters. Packed with clinically supported ingredients designed to boost cognitive performance so you stay sharp under pressure. The most badass military in the world uses this kind of energy every day. Now you can too. From training to eliminate America's enemies to smoke-checking terrorists, Go Pills keep the mission fueled. Real world tested by high-level tactical communities. Now available to you. Greenlight the beast inside. Pop a Go Pill. Scan the QR code or go to buygopills.com and receive 15% off your entire order.
Good evening, America. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you from the nation's capital, where today a federal grand jury indicted the suspected gunman at the White House Correspondents Association annual dinner on 4 more charges, including attempting to assassinate situation is under control. The scene is secured. No other. Where Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said this morning that the U.S.-Iran ceasefire isn't over. It's still holding, even as the two sides have exchanged occasional gunfire in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Hegseth also said the U.S. guiding vessels through the strait is a temporary solution. Now let's turn over to my amazing co-host Amanda Head. She's been watching some other headlines and was at the White House today for a pretty special briefing with Marco Rubio. He played press secretary
today.
Yes,
and he had a really good time doing it. Yes, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, he held that briefing at the White House, and he answered questions regarding Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, and a lot of different things. So listen to what he had to say on the end of Operation Epic Fury.
Operation Epic Fury is concluded. We achieved the objectives of that operation. And so the result has been that the United States has to do something about the fact that we're the only nation on earth that can do anything to open up a lane within the Straits of Hormuz to get product and to rescue these people that are trapped in there. And that's what we're undergoing now.
So just because Operation Epic Fury is ending, it doesn't mean that we are out of the woods yet in regards to Iran. But we don't know what the administration's next move is. But earlier today, President Trump reestablished the presidential fitness test as part of the Make America Healthy Again movement. This is moving away from Michelle Obama's Let's Move initiative, which a lot of people argue did not really do a whole lot in terms of making America healthier. But this seemed to work. Check this out.
From the late 1950s until 2013, grade schoolers across the country competed against each other in the presidential fitness test, but others. And then we had the Obama administration. Wonderful, wonderful person, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? We had the Obama administration, which phased out this wonderful tradition of physical fitness. Thank you, Barack, very much. Great job. And we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back. My administration's working very hard to defend America's cherished athletic traditions and pass our values of excellence and competitiveness to the next generation. So important.
John, there's some amazing pictures and videos out there of the president on the South Lawn with a bunch of kids doing these types of physical fitness activities. When I was in grade school, I mean, you had to run the mile, you had to do push-ups and pull-ups, you had to climb a rope, and that went away. And I think that we have been, that has affected the health in this country. So I am so glad to see this coming back. And imagine the incentive for kids across this country to get fit and to do well in these competitions. So
hang out with the president in the Oval Office. There were some of them hanging out in the Oval Office. How cool is that?
Listen, if I was a kid, I would have done it. It's President Trump, but I would have done it for any president. That would be such a great opportunity. So I'm excited for kids.
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. I couldn't help when I was watching Marco Rubio tape feeling like that was a 2028 audition too. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, J.D. Vance is a very substantial force too, but you just got a sense that he felt like he could fill out the podium someday.
And he was having a good time.
Yeah, you could tell. That was great stuff. Hey, one other thing I'm just keeping an eye on tonight. It looks like the D.C. Metropolitan Police going to fire a bunch of police officials who doctored the crime statistics to make the crime situation in D.C. look less worse than it was. Now it's better because they actually fixed it.
It actually is
Before
better,
it was bad, they just used the statistics. But people keep asking about when are we going to get some accountability? Another example, we've had a lot of accountability in the last few weeks. Yeah. That's ongoing right now. The D.C. Police Union just put out a statement confirming that there would be terminations. So we've got that up at justthenews.com. All right. While Amanda was out there checking out the President's News Conference and with also with Marco Rubio, I had a chance to go spend some time with a former colleague of mine. We used to report together. We did a little Russia collusion stuff together. And today she's now the director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. Sarah Carter has been quarterbacking a really significant. Okay, I think I may have lost. We had something going on there, guys. So a little bit ago, Sarah Carter and I had a conversation about the drug czar and the new policies that are going on there. A brand new five-fold attack on the war on drugs. Have a listen to what we talked about. All right, folks. Yesterday, President Trump unveiled his five-part strategy for tackling drug addiction in America, starting with keeping the cartels out of the country, all the way through new ways of attacking addiction. The quarterback for that incredible plan is joining us right now. She's my former colleague as a journalist today. She's the director of the White House Office of National Control Policy and making a huge difference all across the world. She is Sarah Carter. Sarah, good to have you back on the show.
Oh, great to be on with you, John. Thank you so much for having me on, and especially with such an important day and such an important strategy, a message for the American people that President Trump is going to be there right by your side, everyone in America, as we fight these cartels and we protect our children, our families, our communities, and our nation from the poison and the scourge of drug addiction in America. So thank you very much.
Oh, my gosh, it's such a great honor. Every administration touches up their drug policy here and there. This isn't a touch-up. This is a wholesale rethinking of every aspect of the war on drugs. Tell us some of the highlights. There are really five major parts of the strategy, correct?
Absolutely. I think the most important part of the strategy, and one of the parts that, I focused on heavily with my team here at ONDCP, and I'm going to tell you, I could not do it without the incredible team here at the White House, our Office of National Drug Control Strategy, everybody from detailees, from the military, DEA, working with our chief medical officer, and everyone on board really made this strategy come to life, really did. And it was emerging threats. Emerging threats is number one, and it's there for a reason. John, you and I both know we've spent our careers as investigative journalists challenging what the status quo, looking for that story, finding out what our adversaries were doing, and many times it was far too late. The opioid epidemic in the United States, it was far too late for us to see what was happening. By the time people realized there was an epidemic and the pill mills were being taken out, all of a sudden you had the Jalisco cartel at the same time taking advantage of that and selling their heroin on the street like DoorDash. It was insane. And then from Jalisco cartel, we saw our adversaries, China, for example, the CCP, and the movement of precursor chemicals coming into the Western Hemisphere, the cartels using that and then pushing fake pills on our streets by the tonnage, where we saw the devastation in real lives, souls lost, over 100,000 every year, men, women, children losing their lives. We don't want that anymore. So I was very adamant with the team here at the White House. We want to ensure that we stay ahead of whatever the enemy is going to throw at us. And that's why emerging threats became number one. Part of that is monitoring what's on our streets. And how do we do that? Well, we don't always get the truth from people because people who are using drugs don't always want to tell us that they're using drugs. So we monitor the sanitation sites and our wastewater. And that it's not going into people's homes. It's not invading people's privacy. But what we're able to do is go to the main sanitation sites. We're able to see what chemicals are in the compounds, in the sanitation sites, in the wastewater, and we're able to extract that. And I can say that we've already had resounding results. Metatomidine was one of those results. Sadly, we were seeing an increase of metatomidine in the United States. And for the first time, it's called rhino trank on the streets because it's used for, knocking out rhinoceroses, large animals like elephants and such, and used in farmland. But for the first time, the CDC and ONDCP issued a joint alert across the United States warning first responders as well as doctors that this was out there. Please test for it. Please watch when people come into the OR, into the ER. If they're on drugs, please test for it so we know what's going on. And that has been a resounding success. We also just issued our first solo warning on orphines. So we're keeping a very close eye on the narcotics that are coming into the country. And the credit I give wholeheartedly to President Donald J. Trump and the great team I have here at ONDCP.
Yeah, it's amazing work. The plan has everything from artificial intelligence, the very latest technology in the world, all the way down to implementing faith into drug recovery, which is something that's often been ignored but can be very powerful. Talk about that wide range of tools that are now in the plan.
Well, first, artificial intelligence. We're at the cusp of human technology right now that we have never witnessed in human history, right? This is one of the greatest changes in all time of human history. I think the only thing we can compare it to when you think of AI is maybe the Industrial Revolution. And right now, we're at the cusp of such incredible learning. So we want to use all the tools that we can. And we're going to be bringing in private industry. I'm very excited to be working very closely with private industry and how we tackle the drug crisis using the technology and the tools that we have today to stay ahead of our enemies. John, one of the things that I think is really shocking to me, and you don't think about this, is that the cartels are not these gangs that are just, as we imagine, killing and maiming and pillaging villages only. These are very highly educated people, many of them sometimes in government, many of them in in intelligence themselves. They've been bought out. They've been owned by the cartels. And these cartels have hundreds of billions of dollars with resources far greater than we can even imagine. And they're hiring people out of the colleges and universities. They're hiring experts in tech. They are working on ways of laundering the money like we've never seen before. So we want to stay ahead of them. We've got to get into that field. We've got to get the high tech, get the private industry in here so that we can.
All right, everybody, we are cutting into that amazing interview, but only for the Vice President of the United States, who is at a manufacturing facility in Des Moines, Iowa, giving a speech there. Check it out.
I want to give, first of all, before we really get started here, I've got a few shout outs here and a few words of gratitude. First of all, I have to say thank you to Congressman Nunn for the kind introduction. That was it's probably the best introduction I think I've ever gotten in my life. But most importantly, for being a good fighter for the people of this district. Because when you send somebody to Congress, you're never, ever going to agree with every single thing that they do, but you deserve to know that when they're in the halls of power, and especially when the cameras are off, they're thinking about you, about your families, and about your future. And a guy that you have serving this district, Congressman Nunn, is one of those guys who does the right thing, not just when the cameras are on, but when the cameras are off too. And remember, when the President of the United States at the State of the Union address asked everybody, please stand if you agree with the statement that America's government ought to be fighting for America's citizens rather than illegal aliens, Congressman Nunn was standing up and fighting for you, and none of the congressional Democrats could raise their hand. So along with Zach Nunn, we have got President Trump endorsed, and of course, endorsed by me too. Endorsed candidates for Congress. We have got Chris McGowan in the room. Where's Chris? Please stand up and be recognized. Chris, thank you for everything. I saw Chris backstage. He said he doesn't really have an opponent. And I said, that must be nice. Of course, we ran against Kamala Harris and Tim Walz last election, so not all that different, but that's okay. That's okay. We have got Joe Mitchell in the house. Where's Joe? Please stand up. Joe, thank you. I've got to give a special note of thanks to our incredible Agriculture Secretary in Washington, Brooke Rollins. My dear friend Brooke, thank you for everything that you do. We've got your great governor here in Iowa, Kim Reynolds. Kim, thank you so much for being here. We've got Iowa GOP Chair Jeff Kaufman. Jeff, please stand up and say hello. Thank you, Jeff. I asked Jeff backstage, I said, how are these elections going? And Jeff said they're going great, so they better be. We have got Iowa AG Brenna Bird, the great Brenna Bird. Brenna, thank you. Iowa Secretary of State Paul Pate. Thank you, Paul. Congressman Randy Feenstra. Randy, thank you. And then I want to recognize some of the great Iowa State lawmakers that we have. I will read their names here. We've got Senate President Amy Sinclair, President Pro Tem Ken Rosenboom. We've got Lynn Evans with us. Where's Lynn? Thank you, Lynn. And we got Sherilyn Westrich. Where's Sherilyn at? She took off sick, I guess, today. But she's doing a great job. We're grateful to her. And then we got some Iowa House members, too, and I promise this is the last group. We've got Brooke Bowden. Where's Brooke at? Thank you, Brooke. We've got Heather Hora. Thank you, Heather. We've got Bill Gustav. Bill, thank you so much. We got Charlie Thompson. Charlie, thank you. Derek Wolf, thank you for being here, Derek. Kevin Allens, where's Kevin? Okay, he's got the same cold that our other friend did. Stephen Bradley, where's Stephen Bradley? Thank you, Stephen. And finally, Mark Cisneros. Mark, thank you so much for your leadership and thanks for being here. Look, I'm here today to talk a little bit about the stakes in November of 2026, because I think that we have done a lot in Washington, D.C. to be proud of. We're going to talk about it. But the fundamental question for us in this election is actually not any specific question of public policy. It's not any particular issue. It's fundamentally, do you want people in Washington, D.C. who fight for you, who fight for the people of this district, or who fight for corruption and fraud? Because I'm 41 years old, and for the first time in my entire life, I think we have seen a major political party in the United States of America completely go off the rails. They're not just talking about different views on taxes or on regulation or on the Clean Water Act, as important as all of those things are. They're talking about who does the government actually stand and fight for. When the President of the United States asked the entire Congress to stand for the simple principle that the people's government ought fight for the American people first, what did we see? We saw every single congressional Democrat sit on their hands. They didn't care about you. They didn't care about the people of this district. They didn't care about the farmers or the factory workers or the people who actually make this country run. Because now we have in Washington, D.C., a Democrat Party that is so focused on illegal immigration, that is so focused on people who don't have the legal right to be here, that is so focused on fraud because so many of their friends get rich from fraud that they forgot to look after you. And whatever your political views, whether you're a sensible Republican, independent, or even a sensible Democrat, because I know we got a lot of those in Iowa, not in Washington, D.C., I think that you deserve to have a president of the United States and a congressman like Zach Dunn who fights for you every single day, and that's what he's been doing. Now, let me just give you a very concrete example of what fighting for you looks like. This is not abstract. This is not words written on a paper. This is real people's lives, and this is real dollars and cents. A few years ago, I talked to the owners of this factory who told me the great products that they were making. They were paying their workers a good wage. They were building a great business right here in Iowa. You know, this company was started in 2009, the year that I graduated from college. Sorry for anybody. Makes me kind of young. But here's the thing. To start a business in 2009 was a tough thing to do. It was the middle of the global financial crisis. You had to take some real risk. And what did this business find? After building a great business, after paying hundreds of people a solid wage, what did this business find? That foreign countries, in particular the People's Republic of China, was dumping goods, undercutting the wages of the workers of this factory, and driving this place out of business. They were using cheap labor, sometimes slave labor, to try to steal jobs from the hardworking people of this district and this factory floor. And for my entire life, we had presidents and politicians of both parties who didn't do a single thing to stop it and said, oh, by the way, absolutely, bring those cheap goods into our country. Bring those things that were built by hands of slaves rather than the hands of our own workers. And of course, we knew that when they drove those factories out of business, then they'd come in and jack up the price right after. So what happened? For 41 years, we all know the story. The factories closed down. My hometown, this is the story of my hometown, where I grew up in a community that was proud, where people built things, where new homes were being made. And by the time I graduated from high school, the manufacturers were laying people off. Those big, beautiful factories were shuttering their doors. And we never had a political movement that said enough is enough until Donald J. Trump and Zach Dunn came along. And you know what we said? The Democrats, every day they will tell you, they will fight against our policies to try to bring back American manufacturing. They will fight against our policies that try to fight back against those people who would dump that stuff into our communities. And you know what we say? We say that our tax policy ought to be pretty simple, and that's exactly what it has been. If you're building right here in Iowa, if you're making something right here in Iowa, if you're working every single day right here in Iowa, you deserve a tax cut, and that's exactly what we delivered with Congressman Nunn. But if you're a foreign country dumping that garbage into our country, if you're trying to undercut the wages of Iowa workers, if you're trying to steal the jobs from Iowa farmers and Iowa manufacturers, you know what you're going to do? You're going to pay a big fat tariff before you bring anything into our country, because we're protecting the jobs of our workers and our people for a change. And that's all this is about. When you hear the Democrats attack the Trump administration's tax policies, that's what they're attacking. They're attacking the policies that make it harder for people to steal your jobs, and they're attacking the policies that give you more money to keep in your own pocket. Now, I talked to, again, the factory owners just a couple of minutes ago, I should say. And you know what they told me? They told me that the working families tax cuts, the tax cuts made possible by Congressman Nunn, that they meant that their business had a lot more money that they could give to workers and higher bonuses and higher salaries, that they could hire more people, that they could expand and create new jobs that didn't exist before. Isn't it nice to have a government that finally is fighting for you instead of fighting against you? And that's what we're trying to have in Washington, D.C. Now, there is so much I'm proud of, so much that is moving in the right direction. Do you know, when I was going around the campaign trail in 2024, one of the number one things that young people said to me, young Americans in particular, is that they couldn't afford to buy a home. They couldn't afford their rent if that's what they wanted to do. And you know, for the first time we've seen in over 5 years, for 8 months running, we have seen the costs of rent come down in the United States of America. Our young people are starting to get close. They're making progress. They're starting to get to the point where they can finally afford their slice of the American dream. And you know why we did that? And you know how we did it? It's actually not that complicated. A simple principle. American homes ought to belong to American families, not foreign investors, not foreign owners, and not Chinese investors who are buying up our farmland. Again, it's not rocket science. It's a simple principle that if you have a government that fights for you, it can make your life easier. It can make it easier for you to start a business or to work at an amazing job. We didn't do anything that was particularly difficult. We did something that was simple and common sense. And I think that's what defines the Republican Party in Washington right now, is it's simply about common sense. You want to lower the cost of homes for American families? Here's a simple thing. Why don't you stop giving 30 million homes to illegal aliens? Why don't you seal the border and make sure those homes go to American families for a change? That's how you lower the cost of housing. If you want to make it easier for a young American to start a family or to get a good job, stop giving jobs to foreign companies and stop giving jobs to foreign countries and protect the good, well-paying jobs that exist right here in the United States of America, and that's what we did. And here's the final thing. When we talk about standing for you, again, whatever your views on a specific policy, there is maybe no more important issue than how about when you pay your taxes to the federal government. We just had tax day just a couple of weeks ago. How about you have a government that actually takes those resources as what they are? Your sweat, your tears, your time away from your family, and protects every single one of those dollars. And that's what we're doing by going after fraud, finally, in the federal government. And let me just give you a couple of examples. We had let fraud become so rampant in this country that people were able to get rich not by creating something amazing, not by employing something, not by building something beautiful with their hands. They were able to get rich by defrauding every single person in this room. And they were taking money that should go to America's low-income families, to America's elderly, to people who are struggling in our communities. They were stealing it out of their pocket and stealing it out of your pocket so they could get rich. Let me give you just a couple of examples. There was a program in suburban Minneapolis. It's actually a national program, but it was taken advantage of in suburban Minneapolis, where what we do is that we make it possible, the American people in their generosity make it possible for the parents of young children who are autistic to get access to after-school services. And I think that's a cool thing because Americans, we take care of one another. But you know what happened? That money wasn't going to the parents of autistic children. That money was going to Somalian fraudsters because somebody figured out in the illegal immigrant community that if they went around and said that all of the children in a particular household had that particular problem, then they could collect a lot of money from the federal government. And so what happened? You paid your taxes, those people got rich, and the families who needed those services never got to access those services. They were stolen from, and you were stolen from, and your government didn't do a single thing about it until Donald J. Trump and Congressman Nunn came along. What we did is very simple. We went to the state of Minnesota and said, we want you to audit the people who are getting access to these funds. And if you're not willing to confirm that the people who are getting these benefits actually deserve these benefits, then you're not getting another dime of federal money. We cut them off. And that's exactly what we got to do. And ladies and gentlemen, people have asked me, I'm the leader of the fraud task force in Washington. And people have asked me, is that a hard job? And I say, well, let me think. Finding fraud in the federal government, it's kind of like fishing in a barrel with dynamite. Every week, I get a report from the task force. We have our weekly meeting, and I am shocked every single day by the things that we find. Just one of the all-stars on our fraud task force is our great Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins. And Brooke has found out that we've got 355,000 people on SNAP benefits receiving double benefits, that we've got 186,000 dead people getting SNAP benefits, 186,000 dead Americans getting food stamps right now. Now, I know the fake news media is going to say that the big headline from this speech is J.D. Vance proposes that we take away food stamps. That's what they're going to say. I actually think that we should take food stamps away from dead people. I'm guilty of that. I think that's a reasonable thing. I also was talking to Brooke backstage, and she said, you know that there are people who have this is not a joke. There are people who have Lamborghinis who currently receive SNAP benefits. I said, that's interesting. I'm a pretty conservative guy, but I would think that like 95% of the United States of America would agree that if you are wealthy enough to afford a Lamborghini, then you are wealthy enough to not receive SNAP benefits from the American people. Is that common sense? And I could go down and down the list. We just served 22 investigatory procedures. The Department of Justice, we went from discovering what happened in Minneapolis to serving 22, subpoenas so that we could go after the fraud that's happening in Minneapolis. And we did that in just 3 months. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, when we find crime, those people are going to go to prison for defrauding you because that's exactly how it should be. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, my friends, is we know that under the Biden administration, Iowa farmers and farmers all over the United States of America were hit, and they were hit hard. What we've done using the president's trade authorities and using his incredible trade policies is that we have doubled the export market for Iowa farmers in just 18 months. And that is an amazing thing, because what happened for years is that people would dump their agricultural products into the United States of America, but said, you're not allowed to sell great Iowa product overseas. Well, we flipped that on its head. We told all those countries, you're done dumping that crap into the United States of America, and if you don't want to pay a higher tariff rate, you better let Iowa farmers sell into your country, and every single one of them have let Iowa farmers sell into their country. Again, it's amazing what happens when you got a president and a congressman who's fighting for you instead of fighting against you, and that is the record that we've had over the past 18 months. So let me say a couple more things here. So one, I was flipping around in my notes here because I've been trying to find the name of the person that Zach is running against, because we're gonna make fun of her a little bit. Now here's the problem. You know, I'm sure. Well, I don't know anything about her. What I do know is her voting record. I know what she has chosen to prioritize, and it's not you, and it's not your families, and it's not this district. Because here's the thing, there are problems and there are challenges. You know, one of the things I'm proudest of is that under the president's leadership, we had American families about $1,300 richer from the day that he took office until today. That's between the working families tax cuts, that's lowering the cost of rent, that's all that stuff combined. Now that's the good news. Let me give you the bad news. The honest piece of this is that under the Biden administration, the average American family lost about $3,000. So on the one hand, we got a great record to brag on. On the other hand, because of the hole that the Biden administration and the Democrats put us in, we got a lot more work to do, okay? But we recognize that work. We're excited about that work. That's why you sent us to Washington, D.C. That's why you sent Zach to Washington, D.C., was to work on these problems. We know right now that we've got a lot of Iowa farmers that would love to sell more E15 into the market, and we're fighting every day to help them. Now, I said that. I did not even see the E15 crew we got over here. I need one of those T-shirts. But the congressman has got legislation that's working right now, and we're working on it every single day because, number one, we want Iowa farmers to have access to more markets, but number two, we want everybody, all of our fellow citizens across our 50 great states, to benefit from what's made right here in Iowa. That's why we're fighting for E15. We also know that a lot of our farmers are struggling with high fertilizer prices. I'm aware of that. As the President of the United States has said, we got a little blip in the Middle East. We've got to take care of some business on the foreign policy side. But you know what we're doing simultaneously? We're working with a congressman, and we're finding ways every single day to make sure that you guys and the farmers of this great state get access to the products that they need. We're working on it. We're working on it every single day. Now, when I see Iowa farmers who need to get that E15 to market, Zach, you're gonna have to help me out with her name here. I lost my page here. Okay. All right. Okay, there we go. Sarah Trone Garriott. There he is. I'm on the wrong page here. So while Zach is fighting to make sure, for the benefit of Iowa, but frankly for the benefit of the whole country, that we get more E15 into the market all over the United States of America, his opponent voted to push biological males in girls' sports as early as kindergarten. Okay, while he fought very hard for the working families tax cut to make sure that you got to keep more of your hard-earned money, and why you guys, in fact, are going to have the biggest tax refund season, are starting to have the biggest tax refund season in American history, he was fighting for more money in your pocket. She was voting against banning gender transition surgeries for minors. She was voting against schools giving parental notification if students start changing their pronouns. Now, we all hear that and we all think that's pretty crazy, but recognize that not everybody agrees with us. Here's the thing. Even if you don't think that's crazy, why is that the priority of a woman who wants to represent you in Washington, D.C.? Why isn't she working to increase your take-home pay? Why isn't she fighting for the farmers to get more of that E15 all over the United States of America? Why isn't she fighting to lower housing costs for the people of this district, the people of the state, and the people of the United States of America? And it goes back to the question that I asked at the very beginning of this discussion. We have two parties in Washington, D.C. And I hate to say this because I was, raised by blue-collar union Democrats. My mama and papa, they said that, back when they were voting in the 80s and 90s, the man and woman who raised me, Mama and Papa said, we're for Democrats because Democrats are for working people. And I don't think that's true anymore, my friends. And it's a heartbreaking thing. It's heartbreaking for a kid who came from a union Democrat family to realize that Democrats these days, they seem to care more about gender transition than they do about you keeping more of your hard-earned money. And I really do believe this, that there are Democrats like my mama and papa all over the great state of Iowa, but I hate to say it, and I hate to break it to you, but there are none left in Washington, D.C. The Democrats in Washington, D.C., they want to trade stocks, insider trading for money, just like Nancy Pelosi did. The best part of the State of the Union address is when the President of the United States called out Nancy Pelosi for her stock trading, and I look over at her, and she has got the sourest look I have ever seen on a human being's face. It turns out Nancy Pelosi likes nothing less than being called out for her insider stock trading. We're just talking about that, the State of the Union. You have this beautiful 6-year-old girl. You may remember this. It was a few months ago, but it was a very revealing moment about who our respective political parties stand for. Because this little girl had been shot by an illegal alien. But she had survived. Miraculously, she was in amazing condition. She was a sweet, just a really cute kid. And, I'm the father of a 6-year-old boy. He's actually here with me. He's backstage. And this girl was so proud. She was proud to be there in the chamber. And she gives her dad a big hug. And the Republicans all stand and cheer. And the Democrats all sit on their hands. And I remember thinking to myself, what is wrong with you that you cannot stand up and cheer for a 6-year-old girl who survived an assassin's bullet? What is wrong with you that you cannot vote to give more money in the pockets of Iowa farmers and Iowa factory workers? What is wrong with you when you cannot stand up for the Americans, some of whom literally have taken bullets in the United States of America, but you fight every single day for illegal immigrants who have no right to be in the United States in the first place? And what does it say about a political party that they have fought more against our anti-fraud efforts than they ever did to protect your dollars and to protect the benefits of the people who use those benefits? My friends, this is not a normal election. This is not a normal political environment. This is a contest between a party that wants to take all of your money and give it to illegal aliens, and a contest between gentlemen like Zach Nunn, who fight every single day for you. And I have a simple question here, which is, do you want somebody who votes to give your money to illegal aliens? No. Do you want somebody who votes to raise your taxes? No. Do you want somebody who supports defrauding you and taking money away from poor kids so they can give it to the fraudsters? No. Then do we want crazy far-left Democrats in Washington, D.C.? No. Here's what we do want. Do we want somebody who fights for you every single day? Yes. Do we want somebody who has put more money in your pocket? Yes. Do we want somebody who gives E15 all over the United States of America so Iowa farmers can profit from it? Yes. So what do we want? We want Congressman Zach Nunn, and you got to get him to Washington, D.C. So let me just say one more thing, my friends, and then I will hit the road. You know, I like I said, I've got my 6-year-old son back there, and the backstory of why, by the way, I started in Washington, D.C. We flew from Washington to Ohio. I voted in Ohio's primary today. From Ohio, that's right. The media asked me who I voted for. None of your business. Went from Ohio to Oklahoma City to do a fundraiser for the Republican National Committee. And then I came here to be with all of you this evening. And, you know, I can't wait to tell my wife when we get home that we've watched about 9 episodes of X-Men, and my son has eaten 4 chocolate chip cookies. She's going to be very pleased with the vice president. But here's the thing. It kind of just worked out. I wasn't planning this, but I've got my 6-year-old because last week I took his little sister on a trip, and he was feeling a little jealous. And, you know, when he's a kindergartner, it's not like missing schools, no offense, but one day at kindergarten is not going to cause him any problems. So he came out with me today, and we've had such a good day, and it's just been an amazing thing. I always enjoy coming out and doing events like this, but to do it with your 6-year-old son by your side is really an amazing thing. But as it happened, when we landed here in Des Moines, or at the airport there in Des Moines, we met a couple of Gold Star families from Iowa. And a couple of you probably know this, maybe all of you know this, that in, you know, what's going on in the Middle East, this operation in Iran, Iowa has borne a heavier burden maybe than any other state in the union. This great state has lost about half of our KIA, and I know that you all will join me in saying that we love them and we're proud of them and we're praying for them every single day. Thank you. But also on the tarmac, a couple of Gold Star families met me, a couple of families who've lost people just in the last 9 or so months, one in Iran and then one in Syria about 9 or so months ago. And I was talking to them, and one of them told me, I had no idea, I didn't plan to see them, but they were here, and of course I was honored to see them. It's an amazing thing as the Vice President of the United States to meet the parents and the families of the people who put on a uniform and sacrifice their life for this country. And so I'm always happy to do it, always honored to do it. But one family, and I won't use their name, I don't know how political they are, if they're political at all, but they told me that their son's birthday was today. And so I get in the car with my little 6-year-old, and I look into those big eyes. His eyes remind me of his mother's eyes. And I think to myself, what an amazing blessing it is to be able to be a father in the freest and most prosperous country anywhere in the history of the world. And I thought to myself, what would I say? What would I say if this beautiful 6-year-old boy got older and decided, like his dad, to put on the uniform of his country, and like so many of you here, decided to put on the uniform of his country? And I thought to myself, on the one hand, I'd be so proud of him. I'd be so proud of him, but on the other hand, I'd be so terrified that what happened to those two families would happen to this boy. And it hit me that every time we lose somebody, every time somebody goes overseas and sacrifices their life, every time that a person gives the ultimate sacrifice to the United States of America, we often read about it as a line on a newspaper or online, but there's a father, and there's a mother, and there's a grandma and aunts and uncles and a whole crew of people who love them the same way that we all love every single member of our family. And you take that love and you set that on one side, and you consider the balance that all of us owe. Because on the other side is we have to meet their sacrifice by carrying something forward that they can't carry forward. We have to make this country worthy of that sacrifice. You remember that movie, Saving Private Ryan? It's one of my favorite movies. And at the very end, right before one of the soldiers takes his last breath, he looks up and he says, "Earn this." And what he means is all that love, all that was taken away from those families, all that was taken away from so many of the people who've put on the uniform and sacrificed for this country, we have to earn it. Now, so much of that is how you live your life. So much of that is, Congressman Zach Nunn being a good husband and father and his beautiful family here. I think, what, you guys have 6 or 7? 6. She is a saint, Zach. She is a saint. Part of that is how we go to work and treat our employees and what we build and make with our hands and with our minds. Part of it is how we go to church and give back to our community. But part of how we earn that incredible sacrifice given to all of us is by making this country's politics and government worthy of the people who put on the uniform and will never see their loved ones again. And part of what we have to do, my friends, is every single day we have to send people to Washington. I'm not saying you have to agree with every single issue. I'm saying that you got to send people to Washington who wake up every single day and recognize that they fight for you. That's how we honor this sacrifice. That's how we make this country great again. And that's how we make 250 years of American history and American patriots proud. God bless you guys, and thank you for having me in Iowa.
All right, everybody, that was the Vice President in Des Moines, Iowa, kicking things off, heading into midterm season. We are in full swing. So we have a little bit more on the other side of this break, but we're going to take a moment and we'll see you on the other side.
Healthy plants guaranteed to thrive, handpicked for you. That's what fastgrowingtrees.com.
When it's breaking,
we're moving.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. News doesn't sleep. At Real America's Voice, we don't get to crash or lose focus. That's why we drink Soldier Fuel to stay ahead of the chaos, because we do this for you.
So good.
Soldier Fuel has no sugar, so no crash.
Now that's a game changer.
Here we go, all of us.
Wow, that's good.
I'm fueled up now.
Used by the U.S. military every day. Now available to you.
This is huge.
Built by Patriots for Patriots.
Now it's time for you to do the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Order Soldier Fuel, film yourself cracking one open, and taking the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Upload your video at soldierfuel.com/challenge, and you'll be entered to win a free shipment of Soldier Fuel.
That's what I'm talking about.
Your video could also be featured on air. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to soldierfuel.com/challenge to enter. Drink with the RAV Hosts drink, Soldier Fuel.
Let's go.
Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room Posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office, you're crushing it, my friend.
And if you want more, the members section is your backstage pass. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and videos, insider moments from the studio and the field, and early access to new content before it goes public. Members can also unlock special experiences like virtual meet and greets, member-only auctions, and select event access, plus commercial-free viewing of certain shows inside the app. It's not just an app, it's a community. Download the RAV app today. Find it in the App Store and Google Play.
Welcome back, everybody. The public standoff between the president and Pope Leo continues as Secretary of State Marco Rubio is planning to meet the pontiff later this week. And meanwhile, the Supreme Court recently restored access to abortion pills, and now there are reports that some publicly traded companies are partnering with Planned Parenthood to distribute those abortion pills. But at least one of them, CVS, is pushing back on it. So joining us to discuss this and more is CEO and president of 40 Days for Life, Sean Carney. Sean, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
All right, I have spoken to a number of my dear Catholic friends, one of whom is sitting next to me, and the consensus seems to be that Pope Leo maybe should just stop stepping in politics, stick to pontiff matters, and let that be it. But this public spat is seeming to continue. Is Secretary of State Marco Rubio going to be able to smooth things over?
I hope so. I don't think any of us expect President Trump to be prudent. That's not one of his virtues, but it should be one of Pope Leo's, particularly with dealing with Trump. I just wish this would have started in a different way. I mean, certainly popes are can criticize presidents. John Paul II ridiculed Bill and Hillary Clinton 5 feet away from them at the Denver airport in the early 90s. So it's not the first time this happens, but President Trump has been by far the most pro-Catholic president in the history of our country. And I wish it would have started out with just a little bit of gratitude for what he's done for Catholics, for overturning Roe v. Wade, for defending the Sisters of Life when they were persecuted by the DOJ, for helping the Little Sisters of the Poor when he had them in the Rose Garden back in 2018. He has more faithful Catholics working in his administration than all previous presidents combined. And Catholicism's going well in the United States as a result of a lot of the religious, liberty that President Trump has protected. We see an all-time high of conversions to the faith. It just feels like when you look at Europe and you look at different parts of the world, Catholicism in America is booming. And it started as a very anti-Catholic country, and we see quite the opposite. So the timing on this is bad.
It is, yeah. It maybe was a collision that we could expect to come. I think there's a couple things that lie beneath this. One is obviously the Catholic Charities was a major recipient of federal tax dollars when it came to processing illegal immigrants, moving them to the interior country. How much do you think that plays into this on both sides of the equation?
Well, I think it does because it's money. But I think when you look in the pews and you talk to Catholics, and certainly you look at election returns, the immigration issue just doesn't have the moral weight for Catholics as other issues. The church clearly teaches states have a right to defend themselves, to have borders. This is basic stuff. It's not really that controversial. And when you look at the moral issues that Catholics weight, whether it be gender, certainly abortion, and all the great progress that the pro-life movement has made, traditional marriage, those are the things that are so detrimental to our minorities. They're so detrimental to the family and to all Americans. And that's what has gotten the main focus. But for the bishops, they have focused on immigration more than any other issue. I think they've definitely made more public statements. There is a financial part to this. There's no doubt. We can't live with our head in the sand. And I think that's either driving it or motivating it.
Yeah.
Sean, the Supreme Court restored access to the abortion pill, and regardless of where you land on the moral side of the argument, which I mean, obviously we all stand on the same side of that, but this is a public health issue because oftentimes when someone has access to this abortion drug, there's not a pre-appointment, there's not a post-appointment, and this is not something to just be tossed back with a glass of water and just to let the results happen. This is something that should be monitored. What is the recourse for this?
Well, they want you to believe that. They want you to believe that it's like taking an Advil after, college kids go out and drink and take Advils for their hangovers. No big deal. And it's a quick fix, and it's not. And the experience of the women who have had abortions, who now talk about, they took these pills at home. It was extremely painful. They can't go into their bathroom anymore in their apartment because of what they witnessed. Some women are passing the babies in movie theaters or at the prom. It's absolutely horrific. And frankly, nobody from Big Pharma or Planned Parenthood or anybody on the left was advocating for the radical deregulation of abortion pills just a few years ago. But it is a knee-jerk reaction to the overturning of Roe versus Wade, whether they hate the fact that the Supreme Court did that, whether they hate Trump, whatever it is. They have endangered so many women by passing these things out like Skittles. And, Planned Parenthood officially partnered with CVS to become one of the largest distributors of abortion in the state of New York. And, this is just really dangerous when you have publicly traded companies getting involved in the distribution and carrying out of abortion pills that have only been deregulated, for just a couple of years. And so this is a huge problem. We're definitely working with so many people in Washington as the FDA investigates how these abortion pills were ever, passed in the first place. But we know they're dangerous to the unborn. They kill the unborn baby in a very, graphic and violent way. But they certainly have psychological and physical ramifications for the women who are taking these drugs.
Yeah. Sean, before we let you go, what advice would you have for Marco Rubio when he meets with the Pope? It seems like a reboot is possible because you're right, there's more in common than that separates them. Where do you think that conversation can be most constructive?
It's going to be positive that they're on the same side on the big issues, the family, the unborn. Pope Leo, he knows all the progress that President Trump has made for Catholics in America. He knows the statistics of so many people coming into the church. He knows the weaponization of the DOJ that happened under Biden towards pro-life Americans, towards Catholic Americans. There is much more in common. What's not in common is definitely getting the headlines because it's sort of a dramatic battle. But I think Rubio will go calm the waters and realize, look, on the big picture stuff that we need to work in 50 or 100 years in our country and around the world, they are completely aligned.
Yeah, I think that's right.
The secretary does seem to be somewhat of a smoothing over type of agent when it comes to these types of contentious relationships.
He's Cuban. So. He's easygoing. He's funny. He'll do a great job.
Absolutely. Great take on that. CEO and president of 40 Days for Life, Sean Carney, thanks so much for being with us tonight. John, have you seen any of the outfits from the Met Gala?
No,
what's your favorite?
Not one. I'm just not a fashion sort of guy.
Favorite?
I wear the same thing every day.
I'm going to have to call Judy because I bet she's got her favorites. I bet she was at least watching. All right, everybody, that's all the time we have for this evening, but we will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on Real America's Voice.
They're counting on you to stay silent. They think you won't.
When it's breaking,
we're moving.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. News doesn't sleep. At Real America's Voice, we don't get to crash or lose focus. That's why we drink Soldier Fuel to stay ahead of the chaos, because we do this for you.
So good.
Soldier Fuel has no sugar, so no crash.
Now that's a game changer.
Here we go, all of us.
Wow, that's good.
I'm fueled up now.
Used by the U.S. military every day. Now available to you.
This is huge.
Built by Patriots for Patriots.
Now it's time for you to do the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Order Soldier Fuel, film yourself cracking one open, and taking the Soldier Fuel Challenge. Upload your video at soldierfuel.com/challenge, and you'll be entered to win a free shipment of Soldier Fuel.
That's what I'm talking about.
Your video could also be featured on air. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to soldierfuel.com/challenge to enter. Drink with the Rav Hosts drink, Soldier Fuel.
Let's go.
Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office,